Hey guys, what's up? We're starting on time today. This is Tea with Mike, and we're back with another guest. Last night was an awesome episode with Ryan. For those of you who watched it, he closed out the show with little bit of Lucas Graham. So if you didn't see that episode, go check it out. And we're just gonna jump straight into this, and we're gonna bring on today's guest onto the screen. Thanks for tuning in. Hey Marcus, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going, Mike?
Good. How's the audio?
Pretty good. Yeah, I hear it pretty good. Headphones are all right, so.
Awesome, decent. Let's just get on with it. Okay,
Yeah,
guys. Hello and welcome to Tea with Mike, episode number 17. This is Marcus. Thanks for being on the show today, Marcus.
yeah, you're welcome. I mean, it's always fun to be here, so.
Awesome. So we'll just jump right in with the tea fact of the day. The tea fact of the day is the average British person drinks 876 cups of tea every single year. That's the equivalent of enough tea to fill 2 bathtubs, and that's from discoverbritain.com.
Wow, that's a lot of tea. I don't think I could drink that much. I mean, I don't know. I differentiate between coffee and tea a lot. So, I mean, coffee kind of gets me up in the morning, and then tea kind of brings me down at night. So, I
Nice,
don't
man.
know.
So, do you want to just quickly dive into, yeah, you kind of touched on it, but what's your favorite types of tea? I'll even let you add
Uh,
a little bit of coffee.
to be honest, I mean, I'm a big fan of the green teas. Kind of just relax you, mellow out the mood after a long day. So, I don't mind a nice Earl Grey once in a while. But to be honest, I'm not huge. Like, I don't know a whole lot about it. But yeah, so I don't know. I like my greens and Earl Grey. That's pretty much where my knowledge kind of caps out about
Keep
tea.
it
So
simple.
yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Do you want to tell the Tea with Mike audience a little bit about you?
Well, I mean, my name is Marcus. I came from Peace River, Alberta originally. I'm a local rapper in the Red Deer scene. I've started doing live shows in the past year. I got an album coming out this month. I've been just got distribution to go worldwide on like iTunes, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera.
That's awesome.
And yeah, so I mean, it's been a long time coming. I've been rapping and making music for about 8 years, and due to whether it was financial problems or just me not being overly comfortable releasing my music at the time, I just never really did a whole lot with it. And then I got a lot of support from fans and groups around the area that said, you really got to do more with it. You might have a future in this thing. So I said okay, and then put it all together, and yeah, so now we're here.
No,
So
before the show, like when you were doing a little bit of promotion yesterday about your new album, and I shared it to the Tea with Mike page. I listened to the 30-second little clip that it gives you, and I was like, man, I gotta check this out some more.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate that. Like I don't know, rap gets well, that's kind of funny. Rap gets a bad rap because
Mm.
like it has such a negative connotation behind it. I find with a lot of people. A lot of people think it's glorifying a certain criminal lifestyle, things like that. But a lot of time it doesn't have to, right? Like I'm the farthest thing from a criminal, I that kind of thing. I don't know. I really appreciate the art form because I've always been a fan of the English language and the fact that rap is so lyrical in its nature. You can really expand and kind of explain yourself better than I think any other genre out, and that's just my opinion. So
Nice. So that's kind of what draws you to rap music. It's just the whole lyrics aspect. Do you
I
like
would say
creating?
so.
Do you like creating your own lyrics? Like write your own stuff?
Yeah, I write and produce and mix and master everything myself. Basically a one man show kind of thing. And then so I went to school actually out in BC for uh, basically I only ended up doing a couple of semesters there. I didn't finish my degree just because ran into some issues, as every student does, right?
Right.
But I just ended up coming back home. So, but it gave me enough know how and knowledge to make my stuff sound as good as it does, and I think I can, maybe down the road revisit that side, maybe get back into music engineering. But for right now, I'm just happy doing my own thing. So
Nice, man. So
yeah,
if we talk a little bit more broadly, what sort of role has music played in your life to date?
music's played a big role. I mean, I don't know, to get really deep into it, right? Like I had clinical depression for a long time, dealing with a lot of certain things, and music was kind of my outlet for a long time. It was my way of expressing myself, getting out of my slump. Wake up every morning, you don't want to do the same thing over and over again, so I had to make kind of a different persona of myself to make it more interesting for myself. So I became this hoodlum character, as I call myself, which is an acronym. And then yeah, it blew up. I got a small fan base in Central Alberta, BC. I got fans all the way in Quebec.
That's good.
So I mean, yeah, it's been kind of cool. It's been a cool journey so far. So, but we're just getting started.
So you mentioned like hoodlum, like on your cap. Does it mean anything specific, or is it just
Yeah, yeah, it's an acronym actually. Well, like there's two of them. So HDLM, which was the original, stands for Hustle, Dream, Love, and Manifest,
well, that
right?
is
And then Hoodlum, as the whole name, is honestly overcoming obstacles daily, lyrically undiscovered masterminds. So, and then yeah, that it just became the Hoodlum brand, right? And I mean, I've got it on my shirt, I've got it
that's
on my hat.
good
Yeah,
promo.
yeah, right. And I mean, it's nice because it's a recognizable brand. So.
Nice, man. So I don't know a lot about it. So like how big? Well, I only know a tiny bit. So how big is like the music industry in, like, let's say, Central Alberta, and more specifically the hip hop rap scene?
Well, I mean, in Central Alberta, it's a tricky thing, especially well, Alberta has it's a tough crowd to please. To be as frank and honest as I can about it, like I started doing rap battles and stuff in Calgary, and then up to Edmonton and stuff like that. But outside of the city scene, especially in rural, smaller towns, like I'm living in Stettler right now, it's not overly accepting of the whole hip hop scene. But I'd like to think that with a little bit of positive reinforcement, um, which I've proven. Like I did a couple of shows around Central Alberta, which sold out a couple of times, right?
Nice.
And people were really overly responsive to it because they like seeing something different. But as I said, rap has a bad rap. It has a negative connotation behind it. So a lot of people don't want to be a part of it until they finally see us doing something positive. Like I took 50% of the proceeds of one of my shows and I, supported a local charity,
That's
things like
awesome.
that, right? Like it's not about me. It's about people who are listening to it, say they have, some emotional problems, et cetera, whatever. And if my music can help them get through that in even the slightest way, then I've done my job. That's the way I see it. So.
So what is your sort of like process for creating new music? Like do you sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and start writing, or are
To
these
be
like random ideas that then you, like, when you have the moment, you start to like stitch them together?
to be honest, it's a really complicated process for me. Like sometimes I'll just sit down and be like, bang, I'm inspired, and then I can write a whole song within 20 minutes even, and it'll be one of my best works. Or sometimes it'll take me months on end because it takes me to get that long to get re-inspired by that same idea again. Um, a lot of the time, what I do is I have a studio that I built upstairs, and I just kind of put a lock on the door and lock the door, shut myself off from the world for a few hours, and see what comes to the head. If I like it, I like it. If I don't, then I don't run with it. So it's a multitude of different things that I'd say inspires me to do what I do. So.
So you talked about it. You just keep developing and developing the idea. When do you know it's not a good idea? When is it like time to walk away and go do something else because it's just not happening?
Well, for me, it's when it becomes super negative, right? Like if I can create something positive out of a negative thought, by all means, I'm going to run with that idea. Much like my song that I just released, Overdose, right? It dealt with, drug problems, etc. But it's a positive thought at the end because I'm not condoning it, but it's something that a lot of people deal with, and they need that extra push to be like, hey, you know what? You need to grow up. You need to expand your horizons. There's more to it than what you're seeing. You can't look through stain-colored glass for all your life. You know what I mean? So if it becomes a really negative thought, like so, say I had, I don't know, let's talk about clinical depression or something like that, right? If I talk about that in a song and it just drags on and becomes such a negative thing where it's not gonna help anybody, then I scrap it. I'm just like, you know what? No, it needs to have something positive behind it.
Okay, nice. So everything that you're kind of creating when you put out a song is all about that positive aspect, and also there's a real like deep, meaningful message behind anything you're creating.
I'd say so. Yeah, it's about the growth behind it. There's got to be a message behind it, right? There can't just be me. Well, excuse the language, but pissing and moaning about my life, right? Like, granted, everybody goes through tough times, but I don't want to hear about everybody else's tough times, much like a lot of people don't want to hear about mine. They want to hear about the growth that somebody deals with every day and that helps them get out of that, right? That's the way I see it. So I think that, you can start off with a negative thought that, a lot of people might be dealing with, might be thinking about, but then you expand into something positive that helps them push through that. And then it just has a positive chain reaction to a lot of people and ends up being a good thing.
Ni- Nice. When we were talking a little bit earlier, we kind of discussed that you wanted to touch on some local musical talent, like some up and coming people. Which sorts of people are they?
I mean, like I've dealt with a lot of local rappers around Red Deer. Red Deer has an incredibly talented underground hip hop scene, which I did not expect, especially when I moved here. Just because when you first move here, you kind of get that country vibe, that country tone, especially in the rural area, and then you
Yes.
get into the downtown Red Deer area, and it's got people who've been struggling and doing this thing for a lot of years. So, like a rapper that I'm willing to mention, his name's Dom Sawyer. He does a lot of opening shows around the Red Deer area. He's an incredibly talented MC, and people like that, like Riordan Tales, Distinct, Prada West, which blew up. Mercules, for one. Mercules is a big one because, I mean, he was a small town rapper from Surrey, ended up moving to Red Deer, did a couple of remix videos, and now he's blown up. He's getting millions and millions of views on each
It's
of his
crazy, isn't it?
videos. It's unbelievable. Like I met him actually when I was living in Abbotsford, down in BC, back before he blew up, and he was doing a show at a bowling alley. And that was the first time I met him. Right, we shook hands and we had a brief conversation. We're not super close or nothing like that, but I see him from time to time now at a club in Red Deer, and it's super cool just because it's nice to see somebody achieve their dreams, right?
And then also even through a lot of hard work and determination, believing that they can achieve their dream, but even still being humble enough and grounded enough to know where it all started, to come back. And I've seen several, like when I've been like looking around social media about people commenting about how he always like comes back and supports other people and just blends in, like these this is where it all started.
Absolutely, right. Like it was like I hadn't seen him in, I'm gonna go ahead and say, probably about 3 years time since Abbotsford. Like I left BC in 2016, and I just did a show in Red Deer. I'm gonna say a month ago, and he ended up being a person in the audience, right? And he congratulates me after the show and stuff like that. It was super cool, just because he's so humble and down to earth about everything, and he's just like, this is the grassroots league, right? You're gonna grow, you're gonna mature yourself into an artist, make yourself an ideal sound, which I think is important. And that's the biggest thing, especially with up and coming musicians, is they have to find their own sound. There's so many, especially in the hip hop industry. What I'd say is a lot of it sounds the same, right? Because you find a good style, granted, and a lot of people are going to
Yeah.
copy it. But the things that makes them stand out is the fact they're different and the fact they're willing to do something with it.
Nice. So how many years in total have you been creating music and more specifically rap?
Uh, well, I mean, to be honest, I started writing rap in grade six, so that would have been. I'm really bad with math. Give me a second here. It'd be like 9 years. Yeah, just a little over 9 years. So,
Do do
and go ahead. Sorry.
no, go ahead. You're the guest.
Yeah. No, yeah, I like I said, I started writing raps about 9 years ago, and I got invited to do basically we were doing rap battles on the schoolyard. And we were small kids just making fun of everything. It's what we did, right? And I ended up, you know, this one kid in school, he was running his mouth about something, and I just spit something off the top of my head, and everybody was like, "Wow, this kid's
Nice.
dope." And then yeah, one thing fell into another, and I've just always been that rapper kid ever since. So
Nice. I really love rap too, kind of. So I was at the Edmonton Fringe up in Edmonton,
okay,
and I was at this outdoor show, like for a bunch of street performers were performing, and one of the people performing was like a rap group. They're called Three
Okay.
Daps. They're out of Orlando, like Florida, and I just remember being like mesmerized by all of this like improvised rap about their surroundings and the environment and the people, and I was so kind of like mesmerized by the whole like thing and how they could and the skill to like stitch it together that I went back to like multiple shows like during that time period, and I even spent quite a bit of money so they could create their own customized rap about me. So it's kind of cool. That was my
Absolutely.
introduction to rap.
Yeah. That's one of the beautiful things I think, especially about rap and hip hop and the grassroots league, is the freestyle aspect of it because you don't have time to think, you don't have time to write. It's what you think right here, right now, coming out of your mouth. There is no filter, and it's just you either like it or you don't. You're either good or you're not, right? There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's no there's no studio behind it. There's no filter. It's off the top, and it's a beautiful thing. That's the way I see it. So it's kind of like a freelance poetry in a way, right? But not in the same sense as poetry. Like poetry can make, I think, a more impactful stance on one thing, whereas freestyle rapping usually hits multiple different topics in smaller ways, but still makes an impact. If
No,
that makes
that
sense.
was good.
So.
Yeah, no, that does make sense. Great way to stitch it together. So do you want to talk a little bit about not specifically the music, but like just more the overall like experience of like stepping onto the stage and having people listen to your like creative work, and how does that make you
Yeah,
feel, and all of the emotions within that?
it's a super crazy feeling. So, like when I first did my very first show, I was in, I'm not kidding, grade six. This was the end of after I had just got into this, right? And your heart pounds, you're cold sweating, you're just like, oh my God, people are actually gonna be listening to my stuff, and they're either gonna boo you off stage and you're gonna be a social pariah for a little bit, or they're gonna love you and you're gonna be a champ. It's a complete gamble, and I lost my head a few times, like especially in front of Red Deer, Edmonton crowds, things like that. And it's just, and my heart still pounds. I still get the cold sweats. But the nice thing is, over time, you become so confident in your craft and good things that you've spread in the past that once you get on stage and you see other people reacting to it and they got that smile on their face and they're dancing along to it, whatever, or sometimes you even get that rare fan who knows the words to your song, which is
Oh,
probably the biggest compliment you can get, right? And you're just like, okay, you know what? And then everything calms down inside you, and it's just it's like a head rush. It's a high in itself, just because you're standing there, you're looking at everybody else out there, and they're in love with the same craft that you are, whether they can express themselves in that way or not.
no. Nice. Do you get nervous before you step onto the stage?
All the time, every single time I step on stage, I'm nervous. Everything like before, like it could be 2 days before I even am going to do a show, and I'm nervous. I'm just like, damn it, I better not screw this up, because you're sitting there thinking you're just always overthinking the lyrics, the words to your own songs, which, granted, I know off by heart, but once you get up on stage, you start talking it really fast, and you start focusing on one thing in the room, and you might trip up here and there. There was a couple of instances when I did smaller shows where I did trip up on my words, right? And then after the song, you just flow along with it, and then you talk to people after the show, and they're like, "Man, I didn't even know you messed up." They couldn't even tell. And that's the thing. You gotta, if you can blend it all together, it's not as bad as you might think. Because granted, the audience, some of them are there for the lyrics, a lot of them are there for the music,
Yeah,
right?
just a
Some of them
general
they're
good
just
time, have
just
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
jam, listen, and vibe. And
So
not to mention that rappers perform in bars, so they're probably drunk. So,
So,
so.
do you want to touch a little bit on what's it like to perform? Because I'm sure you've had both of these. What it's kind of like to perform to a high energy crowd, and then versus a low energy crowd where you really gotta like work them.
High energy crowds are definitely the fan favorite. It's so much easier to address a crowd that's standing up and vibing with your music than one that's sitting down in the back and doesn't give a damn. Just because you stand up in front of a bunch of high energy people and they're like, "Yeah, get that man a shot," and then you go up in front of low energy crowds and they're like, "Yeah." I'm just like, okay, well that sucked. Like I don't know. Low energy crowds are really, I don't know what, they're kind of a deterrent, right? Because you're looking at the crowd and they're all sitting down, they're having a drink, they're not really paying attention. You're just kind of background noise to them. So what you want to do at that point, that's kind of the way I see it. That's the time you really got to prove yourself. Is you got to make an impact to those people, and you got to give them a reason to get up and actually be like, hey, he's got something to say, or I like that music. Let me hear that again, kind of thing, And that's where you get your diehard fans. High energy crowds are a lot of the time they're just there for a good time, not a long time, and they're not going to listen for a super long time. Whereas you get a low energy fan that's actually dissecting every single word you're saying, every single beat you're playing, and they like it at the end of the day. Those are the ones that are going to stick with you all the way through it.
Nice. Maybe a silly question, but like, do you find that the crowd in terms of energy level like kind of varies depending on where you when you basically when are you scheduled within the event? So like if you're the very first thing where the crowd's just beginning to come in versus like you're right before the headline act or whatever.
Absolutely. I mean, obviously the first act of the night I find is the most difficult spot because that's the make or break for the event. So you like a lot of entertainers and event promoters, I think they make a mistake by putting weak acts on first
Mm.
because that's when the people who are going to be there from the beginning, that's when they're listening, that's when they want to come to see it, right? So you got to have a really strong performance, which is what I try to give always is so like being the first one on stage is super nerve wracking because you have nobody else to compare to, nobody else to look forward to. You're the be all end all. That's it. Whereas you go on before the headline act, and a lot of people they're already like, "Hey, man, we've had a bunch of good artists," which is also super nerve wracking because then you're comparing yourself to other artists.
Mm.
Like there's ups and downs, pros and cons to both for sure. Me personally, I like being on a little bit later just so I can compare myself and take kind of cliff notes from other rappers, other MCs, other musicians on what they do on stage, see how the crowd reacts, and I can, wage how I'm gonna react on stage. That way, I can get the best reaction possible.
Nice. What's kind of the most unique venue that you've ever done rapping?
Uh, that's a tough one. I mean, bars are getting super creative now. I mean, they've got double decker bars, they've got outdoor ones. The most unique one I've ever been in was probably Club Koi in Calgary, just because it was such a simple setting. I mean, it's a very low stage. You're probably only up off the ground maybe 6 inches, maybe
Oh
a
wow.
foot. Like it's a very small stage, right? So you're face to face with that audience. You're not way up above them. You can't look down on them. You can't look around the room. You're looking some dude dead in the eye, and you're spitting these lyrics. So if he likes it, he likes it. If he don't, he leaving. You know what I mean? So it was definitely the most unique and probably soul shaking experience. I guess would be the best way to put it. Just because being eye to eye with the fans and the people who are listening versus being up above and looking down and checking everything out is totally different.
Nice man. Have you ever performed in any shows where rap's just been one like component of the evening and it's been mixed with like other musical acts? And how does
Uh,
and how does that kind of differ or is similar to just performing an out and out rap show with just rappers?
we've I mean the most I haven't done too many of those to be honest. I did one where it was a half comedian show, half rap show, which was really kind of entertaining because the comedians were up first and they got everybody in a really lively mood. Everybody's laughing, having a good time. They're jokesters, right? It's what they do. And then rappers come on, and a lot of times they're super serious, and it's like totally throws the room vibe off. So I didn't care for that setup too much. If I was to do anything, I'd probably do hip hop first and then comedians afterwards, just so you can, you get people through the nitty gritty. Everybody's having fun, party, and then you can relax and have a nice laugh afterwards. Go home and you're in a good mood. You know what I mean? We did another show where it was rock and then rap, which was a split event. Which I mean,
How did
that was
that go?
it was a headache to be perfectly honest because rock is such like and I'm not saying this for all rock and roll. Rock and roll is a huge genre. It diversifies in so many different ways, but a lot of the time, what I find is it's super heavy, super grungy. You know, they're talking about like, and it's to explain it in kind of a physical action. Rock's more of a punch you in the face. You know, get it done and over with. Whereas rap's kind of like, yeah, I'll give you a love tap on the shoulder until it finally hurts. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
So it to mix the two, I think was I don't agree with it, to be honest, just because it was two completely different energies in that room, and it set people off, right? Like you got the rock fans who show up for the rock, you got the rap fans who show up for the rap, and then you get a rap fan that shows up when the rock's playing. They're like, man, screw this, and they leave, you
Yeah.
know, or vice versa, and it's like, well, that's not what we want to set. We want to set the tone and bring the people out to give them what they want to see. I don't want to make somebody pay $10 at the door if they're a rap fan and give them half a rock show. You know what I mean? I don't think that's fair, and I don't think that's what they're looking for. In certain scenarios, granted, it could be a good thing. Like a band, for example, was older, like Hollywood Undead. They did kind of a half rap, half rock kind of style in a
Okay.
certain way, so they could do both. You know, like they did those really heavy rock songs, and then they did heavy rock songs with rap lyrics, and it in a way they made it work in a lot of ways, right? So that was kind of cool. But there's very very few musicians on the planet who can do that, and I don't think beginners, especially grassroots events, have any business even attempting it.
That's so good answer. And let's see where we're on. So also before the show, we kind of you wanted to touch on struggles in event organization. What?
I sorry, I did event organizing for
Okay.
like a year, right? Um, Event organizing is probably the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Just because musicians, as much as they are emotional, down to earth people a lot of the time, they are the most finicky people to deal with when you're trying to book them for a performance. Because I'm not kidding, I'd have a poster made up, I'd have the venue booked, I'd have the equipment rented, all that stuff, and you'd have 10 artists on that poster, and you'd have five of them show up.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a slap in the face, right? You're like,
Oh, for sure.
I don't know what the hell I'm doing for half the night now. You're like, okay, well, everybody's set's extended another 20 minutes. And they're like, we only prepared for 20 minutes. And it's like, well, you know, and like, so that was super stressful. And then, especially in the bar scene, in a lot of ways, like people get drunk, people get violent, people get rowdy. And that's what I dealt with. Like, I did a private event for my birthday this past year in January, or actually this year, sorry, in January. And basically there was alcohol involved, there was a bunch of illicit activities involved, which I didn't want a part of, but it's in a bar scene, so you kind of expect it. But things got out of hand, and I ended up with broken equipment and losing a lot of money on that show, right? Which wasn't an overly positive thing for me, so I ended up saying, you know what, I'm done with event organizing. People want to hear my music, they can book me. Other than that, I'm done with it. I was trying to do a nice thing for up and coming artists. Like I'd book them hotels. I'd, you know, rent sound equipment, make sure they had a good time. You know, they'd have an open bar tab for all I care. You
Yeah.
know, and like I put a lot of money and time and effort into these things,
Yeah,
and
it's
people
not
came
cheap.
in. It's not even remotely. You know, and then they'd come in and be super disrespectful about it. It's like I would have killed for somebody to give me an opportunity like that. And now you're just coming in and you don't care, you know. It's I don't think that's right.
So what's kind of next for you, like in terms of your music career? I know you got your album, right?
Yeah. So the album it's titled Sticks and Stones. It comes out May 24th, and it's opening worldwide. I'm not doing too many hard copies because CDs is kind of a thing of the past now. So we're going pretty well strictly digital with like maybe a run of 100 CDs, and that's about it. You know, this is kind of the biggest step for me right now, just because I've been doing singles, I've been doing Facebook videos, I've been doing SoundCloud posts, blah blah blah, which are, you know, one song at a time here and there, which keeps people kind of interested but not entertained. So for me to actually come together with an entire project and be able to make something solid out of it, I think is probably the next big step for me. And it's like, I don't know, it's difficult for me to explain kind of it's nice to see all your hard work and different aspects of your music, see where you've grown, and push it all together in one project, and listen to it after the fact and be like, okay, you know what, that actually works well together.
Hey, so you got this album that's like more. It's got how many songs is in it?
The total album is 9 songs, and then it's got like obviously the intro, the outro, the interlude, etc. So what I kind of did with it is I'm starting it on a soft note because I started writing this album based off the rhyme, sticks and stones will break your bones, but words will never hurt you, which I always found to be the biggest bunch of crap because I've been in a few bar fights. I'd rather be in a bar fight than have somebody come up to me and tell me, you know what, you're nothing, and then it really tears down on your mental psyche. I would much rather deal with the physical than the mental, right? So I call it sticks and stones. It's kind of a conundrum, or not a conundrum, but I don't know the word for it, but like it's not about the rhyme, right? It's sticks and stones break your bones, but words cut deeper than all of it. You know what I mean? So I'm starting off the album with a really soft tone, right, which is going to come in and talk about how the effect and the impact words have on people, and then it's going to
That's
get
cool.
slowly heavier and heavier as you go out through the album, and then by the end of it, it's going to be like, okay, you know what? Here's how heavy words can hit you, versus the beginning of it where it's like, okay, this is why words hit you.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
And so do you have any tours coming up to promote the album? Any shows that you play?
Right now we're still in the middle of booking a tour. I'm hoping to team up with a couple of local artists and see if we can't get some funding together, all of us. And like, there's a lot of hip hop albums that have dropped this year. Like a good friend of mine, his name's Craig Pace, Pure Verb, as he goes by on the internet. He just dropped his album and it's been doing super well, right? So, and he's looking to do a tour for that. So maybe I'll team up with him, and then maybe do an Alberta tour, maybe go out west to where, I've got some familiar faces. And if it goes really well after that, then maybe we'll continue on with it. For right now, we just kind of got a Stetler show. I mean, I've got my local show, which I do at the local bar here. And then we'll hopefully be doing Edmonton, Calgary, Red Deer, etc. Kind of just up and down Alberta for a little bit and see where it goes. So
That's man.
nothing super huge plans. So.
Good. Do you have any questions for me?
I don't really know much about you, to be honest. I mean, I really like the idea behind the show, the conversation piece, right? That's something different, right? It's kind of got that old school vibe to it. So, what made you want to do the show?
I guess for me it was just because we like I say it all the time now, I guess, but it's important because it's an important message and it's relevant. I guess the fact that the world has become like so digitalized and full of technology that like people have forgotten how to hold a face-to-face like conversation. They've lost how to those soft skills, how to talk to people, and also to kind of to embrace people's diversity and the cool stories that other people have. I didn't even know that there was all these like cool people even within like central Alberta um, that were doing like cool stuff. And I guess as I'm doing the show, I'm connecting with more people with their own stories to tell. So I guess Tea with Mike has turned into a platform for people to tell kind of their story.
Absolutely. That's really cool. Like I said, I'm a big fan. As soon as
Thanks, man.
like Ryan Garbett, the guy you had on yesterday.
Yeah.
I actually went to school with him. I've known
Yeah.
him for a long time,
Because
and
you do look a little bit familiar now that I'm really thinking about it.
yeah, I've been around the area for a few years
Okay.
now. So I mean, I can't say that I remember you. I apologize.
Also,
I meet a lot of people. So, but yeah, I mean, so he had talked to me about the show. I think he had made a post about it on Facebook. So I figured, hey, I'll check it out. And then we
yeah,
had
because he
our
was on the
brief
show
little
yesterday.
yeah, and then we had our brief little conversation,
Yeah,
right?
we
And
did.
then it was yeah, and then you said, people want you on Tea with Mike. So I was like, yeah, sure. It's super cool to have a face to face conversation. I mean, as face to face as it is now, but this
Yeah.
is about the best. This is about as good as it gets nowadays.
Yeah, once in a while I can do like it in person, but yes, you are right.
Yeah,
Kind of almost limited by digital, but yet you need digital to be able to broadcast the show to the world, right? So
absolutely.
it's kind
No,
of a juggling
I,
act.
I absolutely agree 100%, right? But yeah, no, I'm 100% down for what you're doing. This really cool thing. So, you have a British accent. Are you from Canada originally, or are you from the UK?
No,
Or
I'm from the UK. Spent the first, I'm 23, first 17 years of my life in the United Kingdom. Been living in Canada, I guess it's 6 years now.
awesome. And your family moved here, or did you just come here on your
No,
own?
my family moved here too. It's kind of interesting because depending on who you're talking to, the British accent is stronger to some people than it is to others. Because
Okay.
I've obviously probably lost it a bit because I haven't been
Yeah,
back to England in like 6 years.
of course, right? Like I imagine it would be diluted at some point, but you can still definitely pick it up, right? Like I have family, like half my like not half my family, but a good section of my family is English, and then I've got Scottish, Italian, all over the place. So you pick up the accents pretty easily. So I was just curious.
Nice. I think it's also because I'm trying to enunciate clearly, and that probably helps too.
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. So
Awesome,
yeah,
man.
right. Yeah. So I don't really know where to go from here.
This is awesome. This is like a really good place to end it. I like to keep all of the shows kind of high energy, not the low energy. Like we had
Yep,
some really a good amount of people tuning in, which is like I think it's the most. I'll have to look afterwards, but I think it's like the most ever. So it shows it's growing. It's exciting, and it's awesome
absolutely.
to
Well,
kind of meet. We should keep
yeah,
talking. Let us know when you
yeah,
got
for
some
sure.
shows in the area. Have to come like check it out in person.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to have you at a show. Um, yeah, it's been super cool to be on the show with you. I like what you do. Congratulations on getting 500 plus likes now on the page. That's a big,
Yeah, it's
it's
awesome
a big
building
mile.
that
It's a big,
community.
yeah, it's a big milestone for a lot of things. I mean, which proves that a lot of people are really tuned in to what you're doing. So congratulations on that. I really hope to see you at a show. And yeah, big ups to you. And I hope everything goes smoothly for you, whatever you want to do with Tea with Mike.
Awesome.
And I'll be sending you music here and there. So
Absolutely, do it.
hopefully you're into. Yeah, for sure. So
I dig
right
it.
on. Well,
All
yeah.
right.
Well,
Yeah,
thanks so much, Mike. I'm gonna take off now. So good luck.
yeah, no problem, guys. This was Tea with Mike, episode 17. This was Marcus. Great conversation on music, entertainment, low energy crowds, high energy crowds. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye bye.
Peace.